NewGenGamers.com.
You know, it does kind of suck because, you know, I can imagine sitting at home just going, where is that game? You mowed so many yards to get the money and it never came out.
Putting it on the packaging, though, definitely would fall under the terms of false advertising, though, you know.
But luckily they didn't go the same way as the Intellivision, where they postponed that keyboard, and then finally, you know, they were forced by the government to put it out. I guess they never forced them to put out Smurfs, the video game, but... You know, it's kind of a shame it never came out.
Well, they did have Smurfs. Yeah,
they did.
There was 2 different Smurfs games.
Too much Smurfs then.
Yeah, I think
the government should have stepped in there and divided that shit up.
Absolutely, the Coleco per capita has more Smurfs-related video games than any other video game system.
I think Smurfs were in that one game we played, that shooting game too. Remember the blue guys? More Smurfs.
Yeah.
Gargamel, get on that.
Well,
what's your problem?
With the Intellivision, we had the Running Man. With the ColecoVision, we have the Smurfs.
Hanna-Barbera.
And
shame.
So, we won't get to play the Smurfs games today, but those were decent games for it. Though I forget what it is. Something Gargamel's something is
Kingdom
a decent
of Sheep. Who knows?
Is a decent game, kind of a platformer. But do you have some of these other vaporware titles?
No, I didn't write that many down, and I can't think of any that many off the top of my head. But I know they existed, and like I said, it's kind of a shame that they never saw the light of day. But that happens.
Oh, that's something that consistently happens for myriad reasons.
Look at the Capcom 7 that were supposed to be released for the GameCube. You know, that's we got what 1 or 2 of those titles eventually. So you know, that's just a modern example of that.
And there's, you know, outside interferences. You know, a partnership could break down, a company could go bankrupt. Lots of things can always happen to cause a game to not come out.
And you're just sitting at home staring at the back of the box, hoping. But it happens. But anyhow, I've had enough of my soapbox ramble here, so I think we're going to move on to our next game.
Let's do some bumping and maybe some jumping.
Woo! Data East.
From another Japanese developer, Bump and Jump. And as we spoke about, Coleco was one of the first companies to really bring a lot of Japanese games over, where nowadays Japanese games are so ingrained in the console industry that we couldn't imagine not having Japanese games. The Atari and Intellivision didn't have that many.
Look at that. Classic Bump and Jump.
Now this is a really, really fun game. An arcade game, again, that you travel along and you've got to avoid the other vehicles, try and avoid getting hit into the side, and whenever it tells you need to jump. I don't know how this vehicle jumps that high, but it does it.
You know, and that was the interesting twist of Bump and Jump is, look at that jump. You can crash them, gain some points, and I like the cover art. It kind of looked like Archie and Jughead, Archie Comics, for the cover art of the Nintendo version of this. But I've always enjoyed Bump and Jump, and if you can make it past the 3rd, 4th level, you're king in your own world. I think I've made it to like level 8 once. Not this version. This is completely different than the version I'm used to.
Another similar take on this a few years later would be Spy Hunter from Midway. Played pretty similar to this, except without all the jumping.
More with the weapons.
And you know, there's been some other designs that have been similar to this, but never to the extent of both bumping and jumping that this game meshes together so wonderfully.
Yeah, this game really gave you some cool play mechanics that weren't seen back in those days. I mean, you weren't used to being able to drive a car and then just jump on another one.
People's minds were blown.
It was like, what? I can bump and jump?
They were used to one or the other.
Yeah. And now you got the best of both worlds.
This is what the 80s brought us.
Oh, that's rough
and
right there.
It's a hard game because you'll land on small platforms and try and get ready for your next jump, and there's a lot of timing if you want to get far in it. So it's not just the same thing over and over again like a lot of the early arcade stuff, you've got to...
Yeah, there's like a set path in this game.
Yeah, you've got to learn the level and learn where to go, where to be, and where to jump to continue going on.
Yeah, and it's a fun title.
Absolutely. This is one I remember playing on the NES a lot. I've never played this version much or the arcade, but you know, any version you play is pretty much the same and pretty good. And I believe they also have this on the Atari 2600, and it's not quite as good. It's pretty dumbed down, but you know, you're still bumping and jumping, of course.
Yeah. More of a blocky bump and jump. Here they kind of look like cars.
They have axles, so that adds to it. The next season is spring.
I believe in the Atari 2600 version, E.T. drove the car.
And as we said, the Running Man was in all the Intellivision games. We'd like to think that E.T. was actually
in all the Atari games. I believe he was.
He was that blocky and just
he was the
crept
cause
along.
of the space invading and impending Earth doom. You know, he was a shady character. I dare you to watch that movie again with that in mind. You'll see his master plan unfolding. Frickin' getting drunk. Anyhow, but I do enjoy Bump and Jump. This is a very different experience to what I'm used to, but at the same time a very, very tight experience. That's what we've noticed with all these games is tight play mechanics. You know, that's what can be said of the Coleco. That's what can be said of the Intellivision. That they really had that on. And once again, you know, I've seen these controllers for years, the wonky numeric pads. I thought, what are those used for? Some games are used for nothing. In the end, it's all you need is a joystick and a fire button. But
yeah,
why not?
Yeah, as we've looked at, the Intellivision was really the only system with the numeric keypad that put it to full use in just about every game. Essentially because most of the other stuff that we saw on those types of controllers were arcade ports, which didn't have the need for the extra buttons in their design. So the Intellivision games were designed with that in mind, so you saw a lot better use.
It comes down to monkey see, monkey do. You know, emulation. You know, what is it?
You try and do whatever seems most successful, and we keep saying, kind of putting down what Atari was doing, but that was just because they were the big dog. Everyone else came along trying to do better than them. When they came out with that joystick, it went 4 directions and had one fire button, but that was incredibly novel compared to the Pong games that were out. So, you know, that was a huge step up in the advancement of video games, and now we've seen kind of the end of that first generation. Things started to evolve past that and make that look kind of archaic. Now, one other thing is, we were speaking about vaporware during the last game. There was one other huge piece of vaporware that would have been another really cool item for the Coleco to have.
Yes, the Intellivision model. So I was going to say the vaporware, but they were planning on releasing a Intellivision model that you could play Intellivision games on your Coleco. But because of the crash, this never went into full production and never saw the light of day.
So this was supposed to be Module 4.
Yes, Module 4.
They seem to name everything as different modules.
Making your Coleco the all-in-one system to have.
Collect all the modules after spending $1,000.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, this would make the Sega shit look bad, but
if
it would run properly, most likely.
Yeah, hopefully it would all work together and not need 18 plugins. But that Intellivision add-on would have been really nice, and the Intellivision games would have ported pretty well over to the Coleco.
This Christmas, give a gift of quality from Hills. Video game cartridges from Coleco. Cosmic Avenger, Ladybug, Smurf, Venture, the popular Donkey Kong, and more. Hills has Coleco game cartridges to fit your Atari, Intellivision, and ColecoVision systems for fun you can share. That's the magic of Christmas giving. And Hills' low price, that's the spirit of savings. When you really need a low price, Hills really has it every day.
New Gen Gamers.com.